Sky Guardian, you share. Vachanamrut time. Let us read from another section of this Vachanamrut. It will be our interim, and then we'll return to our regular format. This is a wonderful collection of about 300 discourses from a great being known as Swaminarayan. In this book is many words of wisdom, often direct and often filled with a lot of Sanskrit terminology and other Indian words. Here we are reading Gadhadā 1:29. Good night, Monica. Intensifying the force of Dharma, Jnāna, Vairāgya and Bhakti. Prarabdha, grace and personal endeavor. Already we are met with a lot of Sanskrit. What are these words? Intensifying the force of Dharma, our righteous duty. Jnāna, knowledge. Vairāgya, dispassion towards worldly, materialistic things. And Bhakti, devotion. So what does Prarabdha mean? I don't know. I don't know all the Sanskrit words, but I'm sure by context it will begin to reveal itself. On the evening of Posh Sudhi Punam, Samvat 1876, or the 31st of December 1819. And what is the word? Ask Shepherd of Light. Prarabdha. Prarabdha. It might not be Sanskrit as well. It could be very well some other Indian word. But Shriji Maharaj, Swaminarayan, was sitting on a large, decorated cot on the veranda outside the west-facing rooms of Dada Kachar's Darbar in Gadhadā. He was wearing a white case and had covered himself with a thick white cotton cloth. He had also tied a white pug around his head. He was wearing garlands of white flowers, and tassels of white flowers were dangling from his pug. At that time, an assembly of sadhus, as well as devotees from various places, had gathered before him. Shriji Maharaj then said, "Please, ask a question." Thereupon, Gopalanand Swami asked, "How can the force of bhakti, devotion, coupled with dharma, righteous duty, jnana, knowledge, and vairāgya be intensified?" You share, Gregor, that Prarabdha is a Sanskrit word meaning commenced or begun. Thank you. Shriji Maharaj replied, "There are 4 means to accomplish this. One is a pure place. The second is an auspicious time. The third is pious actions. And the fourth is the company of a holy person." Or birth or destiny, you share, Gregorji. Thank you. Of these, the influence of actions is slight, whereas the influences of place, time, and company are more powerful. Why? Because if a place is pure, and the time is pure, and one also keeps the company of a sadhu like yourself, then actions will naturally be pure as well. Conversely, if a place is impure, like the region of Sindh, if the time is impure, and if one also keeps the company of, for example, those working for pleasing the sensual gratification, and other people who are not so easily drawn towards holy things or sacred things, or of those who consume, for example, alcohol and meat, then actions will certainly be impure as well. Therefore, one should stay where there is a pure place and should abandon, by whatever means necessary, a place where the time has become unfavorable. One should keep the company of devotees of God as well as the company of the Sant, the saint, who is a knower of Brahman, the ultimate reality, and who observes the 5 religious vows. As a result, a devotee's bhakti, devotion for God, gains tremendous vigor. This is the answer to your question. Thereafter, Muktanand Swami asked, Maharaj, initially a devotee may be very impure at heart, but they later become extremely pure. Is this due to their previous samskaras, impressions often carrying over from past lives, the grace of God, or the devotee's personal endeavors? Shriji Maharaj explained, the good or bad that occurs due to one's previous samskaras is apparent to everyone in the world. For instance, the case of Bharatji, which was a great Indian king, of whom India is named after. The word for India is Bharat, and Bharat was a great king. There's a famous story of how, at the end of his life, he became very attracted to this fallen deer and was taking care of this deer. And because at the time of death, that deer was the only thing remaining in his mind, then he was reborn as a deer. And then he spent the next life as a deer, wandering around temples. And because the temples were the last thing in his mind, then he was reborn as someone who was able to partake in temple worship in a human form. So, for instance, the case of Bharatji becoming attached to a deer can be understood to be due to Prarabdha, which, as Gregorji has informed, is a word that means birth or destiny, commenced or begun. Or, if a poor person were to receive a large kingdom, then everyone would come to know of it. That should be known as Prarabdha. Then, narrating their own story, Shriji Maharaj continued, now, considering the spiritual endeavors I had performed, it is inconceivable that my body should survive such austerities. Yet, even in those circumstances, it did survive. That can be considered to be due to Prarabdha. And I like that interpretation, G to infinity. Fate seems reasonable, given the context, indeed. What were those circumstances? Well, while staying in Purushottam Puri, I spent many months surviving merely on air. On one occasion, I allowed my body to be carried away by a river that was 3 to 4 gaus wide. During the winter, summer and monsoon, I stayed without any shelter whatsoever, wearing only a loincloth. I also used to wander in the jungle amongst wild animals, such as tigers, elephants, and wild buffaloes. I traveled in countless such arduous conditions, yet my body did not perish. In these situations, one should consider Prarabdha to be responsible. Now, consider the son of the Brahmin named Sandipani, who was saved from Narak, and also 5-year-old Dhruvji, to whom the meanings of the Vedas and other scriptures were spontaneously revealed when he began to utter the praises of God. In these situations, as well as when one's mind is purified by the wish of God, or by His grace, or by the grace of His ekantic saint, who has been pleased by one's extremely pure sentiments, the influence of God's grace should be considered to be responsible. If one keeps the company of a pious sadhu and becomes virtuous through one's own thoughts, then that is known as personal endeavor. Having said this, Shriji Maharaj bid Jai Sachetananda, victory to existence, consciousness, bliss, to the assembly, and returned to his seat laughing. I like that. Returned to his seat laughing. So, it is up to us to keep the company of a pious sadhu and become virtuous through our own thoughts. This is our personal endeavor. When we are, for example, spontaneously relishing in the grace of God, and that is known to be by grace. And the big features of our life, those are our fate, or fates, plural. That is at least what I gathered from this excerpt from the Vachanamrut. So I thank you for listening with me together, and for helping me understand this new word, Prarabdha. Lovely interim.